Heyo everybody, Zian over here from Nintendo Life, and today we're here to share with you our review of Chrono Cross, the Radical Dreamers Edition on the Nintendo Switch. Now, this review was originally written by Lowell Bell for NintendoLife.com, but was reworked into this video by me. Whenever a developer resurrects a decades-old game, the same question arises along with it. Does the remaster maintain the integrity of the original while changing enough to warrant a purchase for both newcomers and longtime fans alike? For Chrono Cross, the Radical Dreamers Edition, that's kind of tough to answer. A sequel to Chrono Trigger, Chrono Cross's first re-release in 2 decades isn't feature-filled or glowing with next-gen graphics to make the game more palatable for a modern audience. It's a remaster in the basest sense of the term. Basically, a lick of paint and a handful of bells and whistles for good measure. The Radical Dreamers Edition does, however, come paired with another game, the elusive visual novel titled Radical Dreamers, which originally released in 1996 for the Satellaview, a peripheral attachment for the Super Famicom exclusively in Japan. Until now, there was no way to play Radical Dreamers in the West outside of a fan-translated ROM hack. So for fans of the Chrono series, this is more than just a bonus tacked onto a remaster of a beloved game. It's half of the reason to buy the entire package. Intrigued by this unearthed relic, we jumped into Radical Dreamers first, and we noticed immediately that, other than adding a clearer font, little else has been done to the game visually. That didn't stop the text-based adventure from engrossing us, however. Series composer Yasunori Mitsuda's soundtrack pulls more than its share of weight. Now, there isn't a lot of music to accompany the short narrative, but what music there is tugs on the old nostalgic heartstrings as it resembles both Chrono Trigger and Chrono Cross's soundtracks. So does the return of familiar characters, as the events of Radical Dreamers exist as an alternate timeline to Chrono Cross and laid the foundation for its plot. Radical Dreamers takes place in Lynx's Manor, with the protagonists Surge, Kid, and Magil infiltrating it to steal the Frozen Flame. But what that treasure actually is comes to light as the player, taking on the role of Surge, selects text-based choices to navigate the manor, find items, and circle back to unlock more areas. Events play out quite differently based on the choices you make. Kid might reprimand Surge rather than praise him, while a battle with a skeleton may dramatically change in a subsequent playthrough. Going in, we didn't expect a visual novel from 1996 to hold up too well, and unfortunately, it kinda doesn't. Radical Dreamers just isn't that fun. But Chrono fans, with interest in its esoteric lore, will enjoy the hour and a half it takes to unravel its mysteries. And for those of you that can stomach the long walks of repetition, there are 6 alternate endings and scenarios to unlock, which can give you a few extra hours of playtime on top of it all. Now, Chrono Cross itself, however, is a delight. Will always be a delight, and will fight anyone who says otherwise. Surge and Kid's dimension-hopping adventure remains unchanged at its core. There are no extra boss battles or reworked story beats here. Within a few hours, you'll be collecting dozens of party members like Pokemon, including a skeletal clown, a mushroom man, and a luchador, all on a jaunt across 2 versions of the lush archipelago of El Nido to learn the truth behind the Frozen Flame, all the while battling a myriad of polygonal enemies in turn-based combat. To this day, few adventures match the level of whimsy and mystique of Chrono Cross. All corners of the land are filled with morsels of lore, dramatic scenarios, and colorful characters. The turn-based battles of the game take up most of Chrono Cross's 40 hours. They're still fully steeped in 1999 with sluggish camera pans, repetitive attack animations, and unnecessary victory screens. It's a blessing then that with the click of a thumbstick, you can now avoid enemy encounters entirely or speed up battles and exploration with a press of ZR. That's not to say these turn-based battles aren't enjoyable though. Chrono Cross features a complex elemental battle system that takes a bit of getting used to, but becomes a pleasure to strategize with. But still, our patience for outdated turn-based tropes wore thin quickly enough for us to make liberal use of these mod-con additions. However, there aren't any options to alleviate the pain of navigating menus from the last century, nor do the full motion video cutscenes receive an update. An animation studio giving Chrono Cross's narrative the visual flair it deserves would have gone far in making this remaster feel more substantial. But while the additions that the game received are welcome, it's all a little bare bones. Actual widescreen support would have helped as well. Square-Enix included 3 resolution options: normal, full, and zoomed, all of which feel inadequate. Normal presents the game in a centered 4:3 frame with a border that leaves nearly half of the screen unused. Full stretches out the image to the edges of the screen like a poorly sized desktop wallpaper, and zoomed skims about a centimeter off the screen from the top and bottom. Pick your own poison, ours of which was normal. All settings look better with the Switch undocked, but on the more forgiving lower resolution screen, most things kinda tend to. In fact, we spent most of our time playing in handheld mode. Like many games, the Switch's portability becomes one of the remaster's greatest strengths. Being able to take this game on the go with you anywhere is a treat in itself. The rest of the Radical Dreamers edition does receive a visual makeover though. Unlike remasters like Wonder Boy: The Dragon's Trap and Diablo 2 Resurrected, where you can swap between the classic look and the new one at any time with the push of a button, here you actually have to travel all the way back to the main menu in order to switch between these 2 graphical styles. And to make matters worse, the option to have a more legible font, new character portraits and models, and the depixelated backgrounds are all tied to one singular option. If you want the classic font style and character portraits, but prefer the look of the new backgrounds and more defined character models, you're unable to toggle them individually. Swapping almost becomes a headache in a game with fixed save points, nixing one of the joys of playing a remaster, comparing the old to the new on a whim. This is something that was an unexpected point of delight when we played Wonder Boy in particular. That being said, we much preferred the new graphical style anyway, the backgrounds in particular, resembling paintings rather than the pixel mosaics of the original, left us impressed. The more we played, however, the more we noticed that both styles suffered as if the Switch had trouble maintaining a steady frame rate. This seemed slightly worse with the newer graphical style and more noticeable with the Switch docked. And while smaller areas like the pirate ship remained stable, Termina and other expansive areas chugged along here and there. Battles also suffered with some minor slowdown, especially when first loading or after enemies were defeated. A disappointment to be sure, especially considering the modest improvements made with this remaster. There is a Day 1 Switch patch scheduled to go live shortly, with another one to follow soon after, so we'll be sure to leave you with an update if things improve down the road. Luckily though, Mitsuda's masterpiece of a soundtrack rises above these nagging issues, remaining essentially untouched outside of minor refinements, even though promotional materials and news articles suggested a full reworking of popular tracks prior to release. This isn't the case. The menu screen song for Radical Dreamers is a new composition, and Mitsuda rearranged 2 songs from the Satellaview game and Scars of Time from Chrono Cross. Now, even though the new additions and tweaks are minimal, the classic music is utterly brilliant, and you'll be hard-pressed to not stop and listen to track after track whenever you enter a monster-riddled cave or step onto a remote island teeming with tropical vegetation. It's a shame that with the re-release of Chrono Cross: The Radical Dreamers Edition, we likely won't see a comprehensive remaster or even a full remake of this underrated gem for a long while, leaving us with a somewhat underwhelming version on Switch that isn't much beyond a simple port. Regardless, the portability of Nintendo's console and the inclusion of Radical Dreamers still makes this the best and most convenient way for fans and newcomers alike to play the 22-year-old classic and its pseudo-prequel. It's a good game, and having easy access to it is a boon. Just don't go into it with more than modest expectations when it comes to this remastered effort, if you've played it before. We here at Nintendo Life give Chrono Cross: The Radical Dreamers Edition on Nintendo Switch a 6 out of 10. Now, while you're here, I've spent a decent amount of time with this new edition of Chrono Cross as well, and since this isn't my first time going to the game, I played it a bit when I was a kid, I did want to spew some of my thoughts as a sort of first-time Chrono Cross player. For those of you unaware, I played through Chrono Trigger from beginning to end, finally sometime, it was like late last year, and I absolutely loved it, and after that, I ended up having discussions with John Cartwright and Kevin Kenson all about Chrono Cross. And if you'd like to check out any of those videos that we did about it, I'll leave links in them in the description down below and slap them up at the end screen as well. And I know a lot of people have kind of looked at this game. When you compare it to Chrono Trigger, it doesn't stand nearly as tall. But from what I've heard from a lot of people that have played the games is that the characters in the world are still just so impressive and make it fun to go and play. And I've spent about 5 or 6 hours with the game so far, and I've been having a lot of fun with it. The combat, it's unfortunate that it is more just like standard turn-based than something like Chrono Trigger, but I do agree with Lowell that I think the elemental system, you can have a lot of fun with that, and the way that you can add different abilities to different characters, kind of, you can fully customize that, is a really neat idea. It kind of reminds me of the materia system in Final Fantasy VII a bit. The one thing that I was really surprised about as well is that if you go back and look at like the original PlayStation version and compare it to this new version, I really like the way that they smoothed out the backgrounds, and Lowell put it into perspective really well that the backgrounds do sort of look like paintings, and the characters that actually roam around really pop as well. So I'd say that if you've always been wanting to play Chrono Cross and you're interested in it, the $20 price tag is not the worst. I think they could have tried to charge more for this, but I think $20 is a really fair price to pay with the minor additions that they've made, and the fact that we can play Radical Dreamers from the Satellaview is really nice as well. Once again, I hope more developers start including Satellaview things whenever they have the right opportunity. It's really just nice to have that preserved. And I think due to the fact that this is portable, I think I'm going to actually stick with this game and try to make it all the way through. RPGs these days, they're so long. It's really tough when there's so many incredible games coming out these days, but I think the fact that I can play Chrono Cross on the go means that, like I said, I think I'm going to stick with it. But of course, let us know your thoughts about the Chrono Cross Radical Dreamers edition in the comments down below. Let us know if you're planning on playing this game for your first time, or if you played it back in the day and you're going to skip it over. Let us know if you found anything interesting or helpful in Lowell's review. And of course, if you enjoyed this video and you want to see more videos like this, then don't forget that subscribe button next time you jump into an alternate dimension. You never want to forget the subscribe button. And then ring that notification bell to be notified whenever we put up a new video. Thank you all so much for watching, and thank you so much to Lowell for writing this review. I'm Zion from Nintendo Life. Stay safe out there, and we will see you all next time.